what's happening with China sales and its impact on the stock price of Tesla today is the question. This is our second show in one day. It's Thursday. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. We wanted to thank our regular viewers and our new viewers, and we also wanted to encourage you to check us out on Patreon in order to get daily updates that will help you in your investment process, etc. And tomorrow morning is going to be one of our better posts, actually. So I wanted to come back on today for one simple reason. We actually have several Tesla contacts across the globe, and with the number of people wondering what exactly is going on with Tesla, especially if we look at the China situation, I wanted to get a quick response in for our viewers on the question. So I'll answer the question in the form of a riddle. As you'll remember with Batman and Robin, the Riddler always would ask the question, "Riddle me this, Batman." So the first thing that I was told is that Tesla's having a problem right now. The problem is that everybody in Fremont and Shanghai are working overtime. And the reason is because they're behind, they can't make enough cars. So I was kind of stunned by that, because it feels as though the argument that's being made is that Tesla is behind, not ahead of its production goals and numbers. So what he explained to me in general as a process is that when cars are made in Fremont, particularly at this point in the quarter, there's a ship schedule that demands that, for example, even though Tesla's factory is in Fremont, cars demanded in Chicago, New York, other places can actually get to the customer before cars that would go to LA, despite the fact that LA is closer. So what he pointed out is that there's actually an automated delivery schedule globally for where cars go, when, and why. So this, I will remind you, we've actually seen this happen in the last several months, or the last several quarters, and even several years, and that is that there'll be a news announcement that the number of cars had declined in a certain month in California, so therefore there may be a problem for Tesla. And then we find out, oh, yeah, they were shipping those cars to Europe, and so that is sort of the playbook that we're working with here. So let's switch over to what's going on in China. I was told that production quality is excellent. 3 shifts, non-stop production is going on in China, as we've seen in the past. But there's a little bit of fly in the Chinese ointment. What we were told, and this article that we saw today implies, is that all vehicles produced in China immediately go to Chinese consumers, sold and registered in China. What we were told is that China is one of 2 factories globally that produce for Tesla. And what's actually going on right now is that most of Fremont's vehicles no longer go to China, or even smaller percentage, because of obviously the production in China. And so the folks in China are now being asked to routinely cover production for sort of all of Asia. So that would include Singapore, Australia, all of those countries. So similar to how things work in Fremont, it's highly likely that what's actually happening is that vehicles that are being ordered are not prioritized to China per se, even though production might be heavy and high. And the reason is that vehicles are less costly to ship from there to Asia, and in some cases it's cost-effective vehicles coming out of Shanghai to actually go to Europe. So the question then is sort of what's the basis of the report and the process, and what we were told is there's a difficulty for the global press, etc., to fully grasp how Tesla's algorithm works when cars are being globally allocated. And so therefore there can be a misconception that things are not good for the reason that was just described. So the other suggestion was, because Tesla doesn't answer these questions, what you're going to end up with is the large money guys are able to move the stock negatively in the direction they choose to the detriment of Tesla, and you really don't get a chance to finally find out what's happening. And one of our contacts suggested that actually if he had an extra 5 or 10 grand, he would buy more shares right now, because he expects that without a response from the factory on these questions, the stock may meander lower into the 565 range, or be somewhat flat until you get the Plaid introduction, and then we get the revenue profit numbers post-quarter end. So, as you know, I'd have to say that we have several sources and sort of did a quick check-in to find out what the deal is. And after going through this process of a discussion, I'd have to say that I'm a lot more confident in what's going on with Tesla right now. And for folks that are working overtime to keep up running 24/7 operations to do so are not having any problems with revenue, profit, sales. In fact, I think based on what we heard, it looks like it's quite the opposite, but we're not going to get a response to that for quite a while. So, I think you could take it the way you want. I have to say that I'm very surprised. I thought that the priority, because China is such a key customer, that Tesla would make pretty much give China whatever they wanted immediately. Short distance shipping, it optimizes a great customer, and it turns out that that's not the case. Tesla is one of only 2 production facilities, and he pointed out once Germany and Austin come online, there's going to be similar stories to what we just saw, because as vehicles are allocated to different regions, they may go to places further than Texas before they get sold in Texas. Same thing is going to end up happening in Germany. So basically what he pointed out is that you can expect a similar circumstance of declining sales per se in one region, but it can have a lot more to do with the algorithm about where those cars should be than where's the most immediate spot that you would think they should be going. One of the other things we noticed, and that's a common theme here for Tesla, is Tesla has sort of a channel stuffing strategy where, at least for the Fremont factory for sure, they will actually make a point of shipping vehicles to Europe in the first half of the quarter, because it takes a certain number of days on the water before vehicles arrive at their destination. So as a result, if you made those vehicles the last ones you produced and shipped, it's highly likely that if you're trying to meet numbers when it comes to production and ship, you could end up with a number of vehicles still on the water that are not in customer hands and therefore don't get counted for sales. So therefore, at least for Fremont, the priority will be European needs, and then domestic needs in the U.S. tend to get produced more in the second half of the quarter, because the shipping distances are shorter and vehicles can be in hand in a few days versus getting on the water and pushing out into the weeks by the time you get through customs. So I think this is very interesting. I think I've heard a lot of our friends on the show talk about FUD, and the reality is that the concern about Tesla's demise and decline based on these numbers being lower is definitely not accurate, and the factory is not responding, so therefore we're getting what's been put out there by the press, and we're not getting sort of solid answers from the company, and they do answer when it comes to delivering earnings, etc. I do think that we're probably going to see some kind of response on this, all of this from Elon when we get into the Plaid delivery of next week. But again, things are booming in both Shanghai as well as in Fremont. They're running 24 hours a day on 3 shifts in both places, and they can't produce enough cars right now because demand is so strong across the entire globe, with only 2 factories feeding it. And just because you're in China does not mean that you take priority over deliveries by customers that have ordered in other places. So, I'm thrilled to be able to give an answer to this question, and really appreciate your taking time out to give us a view to understand better what's happening right now. We want to remind you to please take time to like and subscribe. We also want to encourage you to join us on Patreon, because you get better information there with our daily updates that come from all of our sources globally to get you better informed as a Tesla owner. Also remind you, we do have some SpaceX shares, so if that's of interest, please give us a shout on Teslafaninsight on on Facebook, and we'll be happy to work with you to arrange shares. At any rate, we want to also take time again to remind you of our health tips. Actually, I'm 6'3", so I have a little bit of back issues, but as I've done a lot more core training, it has been a great improvement, and wanted to encourage you to consider that as well. Also wanted to encourage you to consider no more than a salad prior to lovemaking. This enables you to not have any issues when it comes to blood flow away from your stomach that allows more enjoyment of that space. We also want to encourage you to consider what's called forest bathing, getting out into nature and allowing the energy of being out in that space to help nurture a better health and experience, etc. We also wanted to review our usual tips of no more than once a week fried foods to avoid type 2 diabetes, as well as not going to bed within 4 hours of eating, minimum 2, to allow that food to digest before you go to bed. At any rate, I want to thank you again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, Lehitro, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, Ni hao ma, Japanese, Konbanwa, Chinese, Namaste, Hindi, good day, our friends in Australia, and hey do, our friends in Sweden. And in Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk good. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and we look forward to your constructive criticism of our show. Have a great day, and bye for now.